So you might remember a little while back I did a promo of the game Hell Is Us, due to be released on September the 4th, 2025. Developed by Rogue Factor and published by Nacon, kind of apocalyptic action adventure. Well, to summarise the plot quickly, just to jog your memories, a UN peacekeeper ventures into a war-torn country, Hadea, but the place is now infested with these supernatural beings called Hollow Walkers, and they've infested Hadea after this event only known as the Calamity. The guys at Rogue Factor gave me a code so I could play it, which was really unexpected, but really nice. So before the game premieres in a few days, I wanted to give you guys like a better feeling of the general vibe. I don't want to say too much, and here's how I found the game. So the opening cutscene is really weird. There's this guy with a big malformed face who's giving Remi, the main guy, the UN Peacekeeper on his way back to Hadea, an interview. And this like guy with this malformed face is kind of like darkly comic, kind of like straight out of Looney Tunes or something like that. So immediately you've got this kind of comic book vibe going on, or at least I thought. And it's all really weird. You don't know why he's there. It all seems very dark and weird. And it's just this opening cutscene. And from there, you're launched into the game. So suddenly Remi, your character, is tumbling down a mountain, and there you are in the middle of the forest. You dump your UN uniform on the side and you change into this kind of awesome futuristic kind of cape and this futuristic yet still kind of combat ready outfit, which is just giving Assassin's Creed vibes. And on with the game. You notice that you have no map, you only have a compass, you're running through the forest, and immediately the whole world feels very free. You notice like puddles off to the side, little pools, a waterfall, that kind of thing, and you can just run off and jump into there, and yeah, you immediately notice a sense of freedom from the off. The other thing is the mystery. You know, why is the UN peacekeeper there? Why are you just tumbling down a mountain after having had this random interview with a guy that looks like he's out of a comic book? The graphics are great. The palette is like foresty and dark. The scenery is epic. From the off, you're just off running. Feels like you're exploring, and that's, yeah, at the very heart of the game. The whole thing is kind of about finding your way through this mapless apocalyptic landscape. Basically, Remi is from Hadea, from a village called Jova, and his mum smuggled him out as a baby, and she said to never come back. And then obviously all this shit went down, and now he's back to find out more about his parents. You know, where did he come from and what has happened to his land? So you're running, exploring, and you find out you can interact with stuff. For example, there'll be like these weird runes carved into a stone in the waterfall, which you wouldn't actually have noticed had you not veered off the beaten track and started kind of wandering around to look at things, which the game kind of really prompts you to do. It really prompts you to kind of interact with its open world aspects. And so that's already putting in your mind that later on in the game you might actually need to go back, or you might want to revisit stuff in order to catch up or remember stuff for side missions that you might have going on later on in the game. So it's kind of setting you up. It's setting you up to explore. And as you're going through the forest, there's dead cows kind of strewn about. You can see all these abandoned trucks in a little kind of farm. So you've already got this kind of pervading sense of doom and darkness, like something terrible has happened. And the first thing you come across is this abandoned cottage, and here you interact with the first characters in the game. So you walk up to this guy and you note that you can trade or you can talk to him. And the first guy is this guy in the cabin, and you have your first exchange. And that's the whole idea. You're collecting clues. They call it datum from each non-playable character. So you're kind of just going up to all of these characters as you encounter them to get information from them to help you on your quest. So I don't want to ruin it for you, but you're chatting to this guy and he kind of tells you a bit about the backstory of Hadea, his own backstory, how he lost 3 sons in this terrible thing that happened. And if you had been observant enough, you would have remembered passing by these 3 crucifixes, but they're kind of more scary and like Blair Witch style than crucifixes. But you walked past these 3 crucifixes with names on them, and that those happen to be the graves of his 3 sons that were murdered by one of the soldiers. Again, the game is setting you up to remember stuff. The game is setting you up to be observant and really kind of take note of your surroundings, take note of the things that you see along the way. Each character you talk to, the dialogue box pops up on one side and on the other side. On one side, you'll have categories that actually always pop up when you speak to one of the characters. It could be general knowledge about Hadea, it could be general knowledge about the peacekeepers, or general knowledge about the two sides in the war. Or later on in the game, it could be general knowledge about the creatures. Either way, the really nice thing is that's always standard. And as you encounter each character, you have the option to revisit the same categories to find out more about each category. So you're kind of building up knowledge about the backstory the whole time, and this game is like kind of really obsessively about the story, which really adds a nice depth to it. On the other side of the dialogue box, you've got questions you might ask that character specifically. So who are you? Where can I find the abbey? Where can I find the blacksmith's forge? You know, that kind of thing. Now, there's quite a lot of information to take in from each character, which is really good. I'm not a massively attentive person. I tend to actually have quite a short attention span. So when I'm talking to people or if I'm playing a game, I sometimes get really distracted, you know, tune out. I found myself kind of walking out of the cottage and encountering a gate and then completely forgetting what the guy said to me. So I kind of ran back into the cottage and I was like, what did you say? Could you talk to me again? And I had to do the whole thing again. But that was before I realised that you can actually just hit the kind of big button on the PlayStation pad to bring up the information that you've just been told and remind you of your main objectives, which is really good for someone like me who just generally doesn't listen. It really pays to be attentive and actually makes the game more satisfying if you remember, yes, that's what he said. So it pays to listen. Basically more HP Lovecraft than Giga, if you catch my drift. So a really, really nice thing about the game is that it makes really good use of diegetic sound. Diegetic sound being the sound that's used within the game. So for example, a baby crying helps to move you down the corridors of a well that you've just fallen into. You are told to follow the sound of chimes through the forest to find the correct path through the forest. You can hear heavy breathing around a corner, so that might prompt you to talk to one of the characters. The sound of a violin might prompt you to talk to one of the characters, but as you're walking around the village, if you hear the violin again, you know that you've already visited that character in that area, so just move away from the violin sound. So it's kind of like these markers move you through the game, but actually interesting that they're sound markers. So yeah, really, really nice use of sound within the game. One nice thing is that each part of the level is explorable, but not too explorable as to feel baggy. And when I say baggy, I mean Red Dead Redemption, riding a pony until you die, riding a pony until it's Christmas baggy. Like there's just too much space in the game. The game feels tight. If you get lost, you don't feel like you ever get too lost. You might return to a save point, which was a little bit far back, but it never feels too far back. You know, you're kind of suddenly quite soon actually just in the same spot as before. So yeah, it feels like it's tightly made and contained well enough to be not too big, which is always a nice thing. Puzzles, again, just to give you a flavour without too much of a spoiler, you could come across 3 stones and you have to kind of turn this lever in order to present one rune and then another rune and then another rune, and it's clear that they have to be in a certain order. And I'm just going to go back to what I was saying earlier. At this point, it really pays to notice your surroundings, because your surroundings would have probably given you a clue at some point as to what order the runes should be in. And that's all I'm going to say. I don't want to ruin it for anybody, but you get the idea. There's no explicit instruction, which is really, really nice. It adds to that freedom. It adds to that mystique. Enemies, well, the Hollow Walkers are awesome. After my first encounter with one, which was pretty epic, after kind of walking around a dungeon, you get this first glimpse of these creatures which have infested Hadea. The design of these creatures were actually the first thing that kind of really drew my attention when I did the promo for the game. It's all very mysterious as to what they represent, but you learn more as you go through the game. Fights. The fighting is pretty epic. You pick up combat tips which you then put into practice with the following enemy that you encounter, and you learn all these different hints and tricks, and then you basically add those hints and tricks to your arsenal. You can also upgrade your weapon at different points in the game. You also have a drone which follows you through the game, and it can distract enemies while you're in combat. The drone can scan ancient text so that you can read it and provide light in dark places. So I like the addition of the drone. It kind of adds to this sort of futuristic vibe. And when you get into the town, you wander into this woman's house and you're kind of looking around her bedroom and you're like looking at the bed and it's like, oh, are they condoms on the bed? Condom wrappers? And you're like, no, it couldn't be. Don't be stupid. Condom wrappers and cigarettes and beer. And then you walk out and then the whole house is like littered in condom wrappers and cigarettes and beer. And then you speak to her and she makes it pretty clear that they were supposed to be condom wrappers. So it was a little bit unexpected, but added to the depth of the game. It's just these little details in the game that are really, really nice. And when you meet her, much like all of the other people that you meet in the game, there's so much human pain coming across. Something terrible has happened to humanity. You've come across mass graves. You don't know what's going on. And person by person, soldier by soldier, sad woman by sad woman, grieving man by grieving man, you are unpicking this atrocity and finding out more and more and more. So if you are a story lover, it's definitely one for you. I love the whole fact that there's this kind of religious war in the background and the allusions to the Bible, well, the Helizos Bible inside the game. So like when you're down in this kind of dungeon, you'll see these biblical representations of, for example, like what looks like the Garden of Eden or something like that on the wall. So you've got like a snake and sinners falling into his mouth and that kind of thing. And then the allegory, I could be reading into the design too much, but the Hollow Walkers themselves have absolutely no ribs. So it's kind of like, where are their ribs gone? Adam and Eve, do they have a soul? Are they human or not? Maybe they were once. So they're kind of demonic, but they're also kind of human. The whole game has got that warring men vibe, warring demons, the demons inside, the beast inside, the devil inside. I mean, you even encounter Hollow Walkers who are attached to another enemy called Haze, and they're attached by an umbilical cord. Weird, but I'm still vibing with this whole kind of demon, humanoid, devil thing. So right up my street. So in summary, I loved it. A dark and holy war lurks at its heart. The colours are awash with iridescent turquoises and purples and blues. The scenery is epic. I like to think that it is inspired by Rogue Factor, a Canadian developer's home country, Canada, where the scenery is majestically epic. Maybe some of the most epic scenery in the world, but maybe I'm just romanticizing it. It's mysterious, the puzzles are fun, and the storyline takes a while to unravel. So if you're really into stories and you're really into picking up clues, you're going to really enjoy it. Verdict, play this game in a dark room on a Sunday evening with popcorn. You have an absolutely brilliant time. Thank you, Rogue Factor, for giving me the code. I really, really liked it. So I think we're going to say it's a thumbs up. Thumbs up. Hope you enjoy.